Welcome to the New World Order Showcase Podcast. Your host, Jill Hart, the Coach's Alchemist. Couldn't be more excited to have you join us today. On this podcast, we celebrate the champions of change, the up-and-coming life, health and transformational coaches who are fearlessly stepping forward to make a difference in the world. Get ready for inspiring stories, practical tips, and powerful moments that will motivate you to make a positive change in your life and those around you. We're happy to have you join us on this incredible journey as we dive into the world of life, health, and transformational coaches who are lighting up the path towards a better tomorrow.
Hi, and welcome to the New World Order Showcase Podcast. I'm your host, Jill Hart, and with us today is Ral West. She is a business coach who helps business owners create a smooth running business so that they can overcome overwhelm, accomplish more success with less stress, and live the life they deserve. Welcome to the show, Ral.
Thank you, Jill. It's a pleasure to be here.
So tell us your story. How did you get started in coaching business?
Well, the story begins over 40 years ago, which is when I began my entrepreneurial career. And that was with a very small business in Anchorage, Alaska. I was doing marketing consulting and advertising and specializing in tourism. My family had been involved in Alaska tourism since before I was born. I grew up in Seattle, but I migrated to Alaska in my 20s. And that's where I started my business and met my husband, and I've been here ever since. So we've grown and owned and sold businesses throughout that 40 years. And it was just in the last like a little over a year ago that my adult daughters prompted me and encouraged me to start teaching people how it is that we've been able to run all these businesses, travel the world, have our 2 homes, our yacht, and basically live the life of our dreams. People envy us and they say, I want to be like you. And so our daughters said, well, Mom, why don't you just teach them? You know how it is that you got there. So that's what I decided to do. So I started this new business called Ral West, Living the Dream. And I've developed an online course that will be launching soon, and just working with entrepreneurs to help them have the life that they really want and have their business too, sort of a have your cake and eat it too concept.
And that's much easier said than done in today's world. I come from the offline world and the online world. When you were first starting out, the internet wasn't a thing. It was,
Correct.
you were knocking on doors and having face-to-face conversations. I used to call it belly to belly, with people. So it's interesting how you've been able to like translate all of that over to an online sort of enterprise. And how has
Yeah.
that worked for you?
Well, it's a huge learning curve for me because all the technology that's being used these days is, way beyond, what I'm used to, but I enjoy learning. I'm kind of a junkie about, learning new things. So that part is fun. But the approach that I'm taking is that the concepts that I've used throughout my 40 plus years as an entrepreneur, those concepts are timeless. They're like generalized principles. And that doesn't change. Now, the execution and implementation of those principles, of course, that changes like almost day to day these days.
Yeah.
I mean, particularly with AI.
It's been 15 minutes.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, how to use AI and, which app or technology or software or whatever is the best. I mean, there's gazillions of choices out there and it's rather overwhelming. So I'm not going to be necessarily pointing people into like, this is the exact, software that you need because it's going to be different for everyone. And there's just so many options. And as you say, there's a new one, dropping every 10, 15 minutes. So it's really about the philosophies and the principles that you need to engage in your business so that you can operate the business in a way that the business can kind of run itself, and you can oversee the business from a 10,000-foot level instead of being up to your eyeballs in the day-to-day. And we were there. We were totally day-to-day mom and pop operators of our business. And we figured out that, for one thing, we couldn't sustain that because it was exhausting. And it's a wonder we ever conceived two daughters, because we were so busy, And, that's not sustainable. And we also knew that you can't sell a business or transition to any kind of a meaningful exit if you are the owner operators of the business. You have to duplicate yourself and extricate yourself from that day-to-day to give the business more value. So we figured that out and grew the systems, grew the team and the culture and everything else that goes along with that, and got to a point where we could hire a COO and a CFO to run the business for us. And we were able to, have our second home on Maui and travel the world. And then eventually we sold our business to Alaska Airlines. And that was a beautiful exit. Of course, we didn't stop there. We created some more businesses, and we've had some more exits, and we've learned to pivot as the economy changes and the world changes.
Would you say, let me ask it this way, because I've heard from other business coaches that it's a good idea to have the end in mind when you start a business. Would you say that's valid advice, or would you say just start?
Well, both. You do need to just start. I mean, some people get that analysis paralysis, and they say, oh yeah, I really want to do that. But then they let fear and everything else stop them. So you really do need to just jump in and take action. I mean, the business that I started, I didn't know what the heck I was doing. And I just opened my doors, and then I kind of learned as I went along. But I think it is a good idea to have a future plan for yourself personally. What do you want for your life? And then the business needs to fit that plan. So whether you intend to work forever, that's fine. But how do you want that to look like? And how much time do you want to spend working? And what else do you want to have in your life? And how can the business support that? So it's either, run the business forever, pass it on to kids, exit the business with a sale, whatever. You don't need to have the exact exit figured out, but you do need to have a vision for what your life is going to look like, what you want it to be, and go from there.
I think of it as knowing when you've become successful for yourself. What does success look like for you?
Right. How do you
so that how do you know you've arrived if you don't have a destination in mind?
Yes, and that definition of success varies from person to person, obviously. For some people, it's a certain financial achievement that they're looking for, like I need to make X amount of money a month or a year, or I need to have a net worth of X amount before I can feel like I made it. Or for other people, it's lifestyle, how they want to live their lives. And for some people, the material possessions and the money is not as meaningful as the quality of life.
Yeah, to all of those things. Interesting how I've been an entrepreneur for 40 years also. We're probably about the same age, and it's interesting how so many things have changed, but the fundamentals always stay the same.
Mm-hmm. Yes,
and
exactly.
And it's really all about relationships and getting to know people, and ultimately it's having an offer and an audience that wants your offer.
Yes, that's true. A long time ago, we had a mentor tell us that you've got to find the pain, find the pain point, and then figure out how you can take away that pain. And then that you've got a product that people want.
Yes. And be able to present it to the people that have that pain, and not
Yes.
to present it to everyone, because it's going to be very frustrating and ultimately
Right.
very expensive for you to just which is an easy thing to do today because of social media. It's because we tend to go out there and just plaster our stuff everywhere, and then you're not really talking to your ideal audience. for the most part. I mean, there are
Yeah.
some people that are really lasered in on it, but most entrepreneurs, when they're just starting out or they're becoming coaches, or they're just, they've got the training to do the thing that they want to do, but they get confused as to where the message needs to go. And so their message gets really diluted and it ends up not really reaching anybody.
Mhm. Well, people try to be that one size fits all,
Mhm.
and that's not necessarily needed. And another thing that I've heard many times is that people say, "Oh, well, I can't do that because there's already thousands of people offering that." And then I've been told, you know what? There's only one you. So there's only one you that's delivering your message in your way. And there's going to be people that will hear it from you better than from someone else. So don't be intimidated by the idea that, there's too many others already doing that. I mean, it's sort of like saying, oh, why write a book? There's too many books being written. We don't need another book written. Well, really? Well, no, that's not true. There's always room for another because there's a different message from each of us. Each of us have a gift, a message, a mission, and we need to follow that and realize that there will be an audience for that. Might not be millions of people, but does it need to be?
Exactly. I've interviewed so many coaches over the last year and a half that a lot of them are doing the same things. I mean, ultimately, all coaches do the same things. It starts with your internal work and then your messaging and the fundamentals, because the fundamentals are the fundamentals. But everybody brings something unique to the program, and even if their modalities are the same, like 47 people do Reiki, they don't all do it the same way, and they don't they don't all have the same extra things that they add to the equation. And it makes it so interesting to find out what they're doing and how they're doing it and who they're sharing it with, which
Mhm.
is a lot of why I do what I do.
Yeah. I mean, it's like, every fingerprint is unique.
Yeah.
Well, each one of us is unique because we bring to the table all of our experience and everything that we've learned. It's a multifaceted background that you're bringing into your work. Nobody can duplicate that. Nobody.
No, they can't. And that's what makes it so special. So do you work mainly one-on-one with people, or do you do group coaching? How does your program work?
Well, mostly I'm developing this online course so that I can get to a broader range of people that way. And I have a lifestyle that I'm protective of. We love to travel, and I love to spend time with my family and friends. So I don't want to um, be tied to a one-on-one coaching kind of schedule. So I figured that the online coaching would give me the ability to get the message to people that need it and do it in a cost-effective manner for them and allow me the freedom to live the lifestyle that I want. And down the road, there'll probably be some more group coaching and maybe a mastermind group and so forth. But for right now, I'm just focusing on getting the online course out there. And it's going to be an affordable price, and it will make a difference in people's lives. If they take the course and actually implement what I'm suggesting, they'll find that they have freedom. And that's ultimately what most of us want is freedom.
And freedom, financial freedom, all the freedoms.
Mhm. Freedom to just,
So
take a long hot bath if you want to have the time to do that.
it's a thing.
Yeah.
It's a real
Take,
thing.
take that walk in the woods and, whatever it is that floats your boat.
And taking time for yourself really does actually help your business. It's in those quiet moments when you're not in the grind that allows your mind to like wander and conjure up new ideas and new paths and new directions that you can go in. And yes, there's so much
Absolutely.
opportunity right now that it's kind of crazy.
Yeah. Yeah. I talk about the fact that you need to be able to to float up to that 10,000-foot level to look at your business and work on it instead of in it. And if you don't give yourself that time for that perspective, you're going to end up someplace that maybe you didn't intend to, because you haven't had the opportunity to really think about what direction you want to take things. And, probably the first 10 or 20 years of my career, I didn't know that. And I didn't practice that. And, I suffered because of it. So I learned my lesson, and I am now giving myself that gift of that free time.
You can begin to resent what you're doing as though you're resenting a boss, if you've ever worked for someone else, because your business becomes your boss. And unless you take control of it and set your boundaries with it, it can take on a life of its own. And suddenly you're like spending all your time taking care of it when you don't really have to.
Yeah.
Just,
I say that your business owns you instead of you owning the business. And that's not what most people want. They get excited about being an entrepreneur and saying, oh, I can chart my own course. I can do whatever I want to do. And then pretty soon, no, they're totally engulfed and overwhelmed. And it's like, what happened to my life? Everything is about the business. And that's not the way most people really want it to be.
no. And again, that I think it goes back to or my earlier point was that knowing what success looks like for you, and charting a little bit of a course, you do need to get started. I mean, getting started is like, you have to get out there, but you need to pay attention to numbers. You need the data, you need the feedback, you need to like take the 10,000-foot view from time to time and say, what is good about what's happening? What isn't so good? What do I need to change? And why is this working? And why maybe isn't that working?
Absolutely. That's part of my course. I love it. Yeah.
Just the fundamentals,
Yes.
the fundamentals are the fundamentals. But most people, when they become entrepreneurs, don't understand what the fundamentals are.
Yeah.
And so they just jump in and they start, maybe they spend some money and build a website because they heard they needed to build a website. You don't need a website anymore.
It depends on what you're selling and to whom as to whether you need a website. So yes. And there's always it depends.
Mhm.
But yeah, you're right. I mean, some of these principles have been taught for many, many years. I mean, Napoleon Hill, wrote his Think and Grow Rich, in the 1930s or something. And there's the total quality management system that Deming did in the 40s and 50s. And that's all about using data to measure your progress and put quality control measures into place and all of that. That hasn't changed. I mean, the techniques that you use and the software and so forth, yeah, that's all new stuff. But it's really the same point.
It's totally the same point. And it's easy to just say, oh, those are just numbers.
Oh,
I
no.
don't like math, and wander off into the toolies, but you're going to find yourself off in the toolies if you don't pay attention to it.
Absolutely. You really do need to track where you are. And it's not just about the financial numbers too. I mean, there's numbers in terms of, what kind of customer satisfaction you have. You have to measure, what your feedback is and have a system in place to gather that feedback. And if you don't, then you're missing out. You can't craft your product to meet the market's needs unless you know what it is your market is liking and not liking about whatever your product is.
And it even gets down to how many people you need to reach out to in terms of advertising, because
Sure.
everybody's got to advertise as much as I talk about coaches a lot because I work with coaches, mostly life,
Yeah.
health, and transformational coaches. So from my experience, they tend to be more feeling related rather than data related.
Mm.
And they wander into trouble with that, because then they find themselves burning out and they don't understand why they're burning out. And they don't want to talk about things like marketing, which is just a fancy word for advertising, getting your message out in front of people.
Right.
And if you don't know what numbers you need to hit or how to use the marketing or advertising effectively, and I'm not even talking about paid advertising, free advertising, things like posting on social media or coming on podcasts, doing it succinctly and strategically rather than randomly, which a lot of people do, is important. And it's all comes back to the numbers and knowing your
Right.
numbers. And
You have to know where your business is coming from.
Mhm,
And there is such a thing as acquisition cost.
mhm.
What does it cost you for each customer or client that you're bringing in? And how do you know that? Well, you're not going to know that unless you're doing some tracking and some measurements. And then you can make decisions as to, well, do I need to actually place ads on Facebook or LinkedIn? Or is it enough to do the organic social media? Or am I going to do emails? Or is it just one-on-one networking that works best? You're not going to know that unless you're doing some tracking. Maybe just going to Chamber of Commerce meetings and doing the old handshake and one-on-one stuff. Maybe that's what works really well for your business, but you're not going to know that unless you're tracking it.
Yep, for sure. So who are your ideal clients?
Well, my ideal customer avatar, if you will, is a female entrepreneur aged like 35 to 55 who's running a business that's fairly successful, probably at least 500,000 in volume. And they've gotten to the point where it's pretty good sized organization and they're swamped and they're totally overwhelmed with that day-to-day operation. And that's where they need the help and they need to learn how to create systems. So that's the person that has that pain point that I was talking about earlier. The pain is, I want to grow my business, but I don't have time to take on any more because I'm so busy just handling what I've got. And yeah, I've got people working for me, but it seems like I spend all my time telling them what to do and answering their questions. And I'm not able to get out and drum up more business or figure out what my next move is. So they need to be able to step back to that 10,000 foot level that we were talking about.
Mhm.
And that's what I can help them with. I can help them see where there might be an opportunity for a system. And sometimes systems involve training, learning how to delegate, learning how to develop your team, how to create the processes and procedures and put them in writing so that other people can do what you do and that you don't have to be at their constant beck and call to answer the questions about how am I supposed to do this? And what is the, what do we do when this happens? Well, it takes some time, but you have to document all of that and be able to share it in order for other people to do what you do.
And you'll reach ceilings along the way. And even to get to the $500,000 level, you'll have hit other milestones, and those people will recognize, okay, I need more help.
Yeah.
I need more systems, because the systems that have gotten me, from 0 to 100,000, you can pretty much do yourself. From 100 to 500, you're starting to put systems in, but they're like you're saying, you're wearing all the hats. You're just trying to get people to kind of help you, but you're still really doing everything
Yeah.
yourself.
Yes. And I find that there's a lot of resistance to delegate,
Mhm.
to let go.
Mhm.
Like, well, I want to control this because I know how it's supposed to be done. Nobody else does. And you can't get caught in that, in order to have it done right, I need to do it myself kind of mentality, because you're just sentencing yourself to, being a
Imprisoned
slave.
by your business.
Yes, you're absolutely a slave to your business. And I also find that even though there's a lot of talk about systems, I'm not sure that there's really the understanding of systems that goes along with that. Some people say the word systems and they're just thinking about, huge technology-based systems like Amazon has or Uber or something. But systems can sometimes be very, very simple and overlooked. Like to get a spreadsheet to record certain statistics or processes, have some tools, whether it's a calendar or some kind of productivity app, or somehow get yourself organized, and whatever it takes for you to work within a particular process to be comfortable for you, that's what you need to do. And it starts with that. And then you can grow into other systems. But I think that we need to kind of get back to the basics of, well, what really is a system, and how can we employ the most simple, most elementary systems to begin with, and then grow from there.
I think part of the problem stems from being online. When people are trying to run online businesses versus working in the physical world, when you went to your office, there were systems already there in whatever position you were in, whether you were the owner or an employee. You knew what you were supposed to be doing, and the systems, by virtue of the fact that you walked in the door, and maybe you're bringing people into your business to work for you, you tell them what to do and you can kind of keep an eye on them. But when it comes to working online, you're not really watching them. So it's harder to like just glance around the office and see who's doing what. And so there's this feeling of disconnect that maybe they're not really working. How do I know?
Yeah. So some of those systems need to be for accountability then.
Right.
How do you know? How do you set up an accountability system that works from a distance?
Mhm.
If a lot of your team members are remote, which nowadays many are, how do
Right.
you know what they're doing? But there are standard operating procedures that can be put into place, and there can be reporting systems so that you can see the output and track, what they're doing. So whether you're using a virtual assistant or whatever, and there's ways to keep track of that.
Yeah, there are. I know that there are, but a lot of people don't really, it doesn't, like, when they're doing it all themselves, and then the idea that there are actually ways that you can grow and expand, and you don't have to have a physical office to do it. Which I think
Correct.
is pretty
Yeah.
amazing with what you're doing.
And nowadays, well, I say nowadays, it makes me sound like a dinosaur, but we can be so creative about how we want to run a business. It doesn't have to be brick and mortar like it did many years ago. And we can establish our own hours. We can establish our own processes. I mean, our products, we're wide open. So be creative, but understand, like we've been saying, is that you've got to track some data. You've got to know where your customers are. You've got to certainly track the finances so that you know what you're being paid, and make sure that your costs are in line with what your revenue is. You don't want to be charging too little to, you need to cover what it's going to cost you to bring in those customers. And you have some infrastructure, even if you're working from your home, you have internet, you have computers and so on and so forth. There's things that have to be paid for. So, you need to take all of that into account.
And you need to have some accounting system.
Absolutely. And you don't need to do it yourself. That's one of the first things that I would outsource, is like the bookkeeping. Get somebody else to do that. And I've got all kinds of systems for communicating with my bookkeepers who are remote. They're thousands of miles away from me. And yet I can communicate with them from wherever in the world I am.
It's been very fascinating. I know that you offer a quiz and another value offer.
Yes, I have a document called the 6 Essential Secrets to Business Success. It's kind of a tongue twister, but that's available on my website for free. as well as a quiz that you can answer the question, what's holding your business back? And we'll give you some feedback when you take that quiz. And you just need to go to www.ralwest.com, RALWEST.com. Real simple.
And we'll be sure and put that link in the show notes.
Thank you.
Below this episode. So Ral, this has been really a fascinating discussion. What's the one thing that you hope the audience takes away from our conversation today?
Well, I believe that there are no limits to what you can do, and you do have the ability to craft the life that you really want, and you deserve it. So go for it, and just make sure that you have the mentors and the support system that you need so that you can get things done and still have the life that you want.
Awesome. Thank you so much for joining me.
Yeah, thank you, Jill.
Thank you so much for tuning in to another empowering episode of the You World Order Showcase podcast. We hope you've enjoyed hearing from our incredible life, health, and transformational coaches who are making a profound impact on the world. Remember, change begins with you, and you have the power to transform your life and the lives of others. If you want to take that next step and unlock your true potential, visit thecoachesalchemist.com, where you can find the 3 ways we can help you for free to spin your talent into gold with clarity, a system, and a plan. Don't forget to hit the subscribe button so you never miss an inspiring episode. And if you enjoyed today's show, we'd greatly appreciate it if you could leave us a review on your favorite podcast platform. Your feedback means the world to us and helps us reach more people with our positive message. Stay connected with us on social media for updates, behind-the-scenes content, and upcoming guest announcements. You can find us on Facebook at the You World Order, or simply visit thecoachesalchemist.com.